Welcome back, everybody. Stoner Jesus Show. On Skype, we have Bryce Jackson from libertarianvindicator.com. Bryce Jackson, CVT, on the Twitter. Bryce, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Obviously, most people that I've come into contact with are libertarians. They've come into it from a different part of the political spectrum. Few people are, brought up in libertarianism or whatever it is. Does that describe you? Or did you start when you were younger on a different part of the spectrum and then move into libertarianism, or is it always something that you've kind of felt?
Well, I mean, I've always been everyone considers himself a free thinker. I'm sure Karl Marx thought he was a free thinker. Just like every writer thinks they're the best writer, myself included.
Absolutely.
I did come in from a different side, and I came in from the left, which is not normally where you would find an American coming into libertarianism from, but it's not unheard of. Thomas Sowell was a full-fledged Marxist.
Yeah.
I've heard Eric July say that he was a leftist at one point in his life, and he's now as ardent and anarcho-capitalist as you can get. So, I've always questioned everything. My philosophy has always been ask why until you can't ask it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I started, I came from, I guess it would be described as the right. I was, if you can imagine, a 12-year-old Rush Limbaugh listener who is lecturing you about your politics. That was me at one point. I was a big, W. Bush supporter and all that. I was a neocon, basically. And the way that the course of the Iraq War really brought me, further into libertarianism. I discovered Ron Paul, I think through MySpace in 2007. And I just realized that was a lot of the stuff that I thought in the war shit. I saw what was happening in Iraq, and it just, I was one of those America, go, go, go. We're bringing freedom and democracy to the region and all that crap. And obviously it's not gone that way, but it's always interesting to hear how people come to libertarianism because, like I said, unfortunately, very few people were brought up there. They start with a base of, liberal, conservative, the kind of tight little labeling that a lot of people are involved in. But that's another reason I like having people like libertarians, especially who are involved in politics and activism on the show. Because mostly we do comedy and weed shit here, of course. But I like to get people to think about things in other ways because it's so easy on social media and online to get locked in your little echo chamber and never get loose. You write for libertarianvindicator.com. What's some of the stuff that you cover over there?
I tend to be the guy that is, I cover culture. I generally do it from a opinion-based standpoint. I don't feign objective journalism at all. My number one influence in writing was Hunter S. Thompson, who believed that objective journalism was a myth anyway, and it was not even worth trying. Just don't bother. And I think in today's culture, we can actually see that maybe Thompson was right. The more people even attempt to be objective, the more it just becomes blatantly obvious they're not.
Yeah.
I mean, you can name anyone: Fox, CNN, fake news, this news, that news. It's a business. I started as a television producer in Barrie, Vermont, for Central Vermont Television. And yeah, it's a business. That's what it is. And if what you're peddling is getting the advertisers, they're going to continue peddling it. So maybe we should just stop, with the airs and just admit we're all biased.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people spend a lot of time with their persona and what they build up. And a lot of people seem to not realize or seem to forget that, our perceptions color everything we do, and there's really no getting around that. And the sooner you accept it, the sooner you're, you can be honest with people and transparent with people. Speaking of personas, obviously Donald Trump has been president for a little over a year now. What are your impressions, like your major impressions of him over the first, 15 or 16 months or whatever it's been?
I'll be the first to admit I might have been a little trollish at first with some of his supporters for nothing other than my own entertainment. Just hitting them with facts, namely on economics, which says a lot. I am not an economist. If you read my work, you will see I usually only skim over what I can find for economics online, basically comparing, like how subsidies work or how they don't work.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. I will say this much. I think I know more about economics than Donald Trump does.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we are now sitting in the world where the Korean War is over.
It's true.
And no other president did that. Now, I don't agree with everything he did to get us there. Being the whole, ooh, look at my muscles. I think we could have been less abrasive. But at press time, if it means peace in the Korean Peninsula, hopefully more resources for the North Korean people, you know what? I'm going to chalk it up as a win for everyone, and I'll give Trump a quick pat on the back before I go right back to opposing what I'll always oppose, which is anything that grows government, anything that takes from the taxpayer to fund something that could be privately funded, which at press time, I'm in firm belief most things could be privately funded, probably more efficient.
Yeah, absolutely. So I said this a couple weeks ago on the show too. Trump strikes me as someone of extremes. He has some extreme strengths that has got him to where he is against pretty much what everybody thought was going to happen. And obviously he has many extreme flaws that creep up on a daily basis, usually on Twitter. Do you think, looking into the future, you think Trump is an anomaly and we're going to go back to, the plain old run-of-the-mill politicians that we've always had? Or is this something that's going to that's open up the floodgates for just all manner of, celebrity and whoever else getting involved in government and trying to make policy?
Well, I mean, what we're seeing from Kanye, by the way, I keep looking back at my dog. That's
fine.
Kanye West and what's been going on there, just a prime example that, first off, American conservatism is changing entirely. Yeah. And what the very definition of it is going to be very different from what it's been classically. And I think that's part of the leftist meltdown right now, just to sidetrack for a quick sec. I think it's that they've held on so long to the talking points of the Republicans are racist, the Republicans are homophobic, and now we see a shift coming in the form of conservatives like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro, who are not so big on the social stuff that the leftists have basically clung to as their, hey, look at us, we're better. And that's really changing it, because you see they're still using that argument, but it's not going over the same as it did 10 or 15 years ago. Yes, we're having people melt down, but more and more people I talk to, they now see the Democratic Party for what it is, which is a party of broken promises and do I say BS, or am I allowed to say?
Oh, you can cuss. No, we're uncensored.
Okay, yeah, through the bullshit.
Yeah.
So I think in my lifetime, unless I die sometime soon, I think we will see the end of the Democratic Party and hopefully replaced with the Libertarian Party. If the Libertarian Party is now considered the new leftist party, I'll be tickled pink.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. It's easy to see that this is definitely a shift. I mean, I think people could see it before 2016 that things were shifting, but if anything really brought it home is the fact that Donald Trump's president of the United States, which is still seems like a weird thing to say. I mean, we all grew up with this dude and all the weird shit he does and his weird hair and flying off the handle, but now he's in the White House and he's pretty much that guy. He's the same guy. He's going on Twitter, going off, and
But didn't we see it coming before this? I mean, we had Jesse Ventura become the governor of Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
we had Arnold Schwarzenegger become the governor of California. That was a huge surprise. And by the way, I wish we could change some of the Constitution because I think Schwarzenegger would actually make a pretty damn good president.
Yeah.
My own personal opinion. I think he did a lot for California. And I think he's one of those newer Republicans that actually does want to shift the Republican Party more to. I don't think he's a libertarian by any means. If anything, he's more of a moderate centrist. But I'm not against allying with people like that. I'm not against allying with anybody. If me and Bernie Sanders agree on one issue, I'll ally with Bernie Sanders for one issue. I'll go right back to telling him that his economics are shit, but something tells me that if he's read my work, he probably already knows how I feel.
That's a good segue, actually. Speaking of one of the very few issues I agree with Bernie Sanders on is the war on drugs and marijuana legalization. What's your thoughts on, especially, I don't know how much you follow marijuana legalization and all that, but what's gone on the last 5 years? You have any thoughts on that?
Well, I live in Vermont, so I hope that answers your question right there as to how I feel about weed. If that doesn't answer your question, as soon as I got done mucking my yard and doing my chores this morning, I roasted a big fat bowl because it's my day off. So, yeah. We shouldn't be making anything illegal as far as what we want to put in our body.
Yeah.
That goes right up there with if you're an adult and you want to eat a Tide Pod, have at it, bro. I mean, I don't think you're going to like how it turns out, but I'm not your mama, so I don't care. Every time I see these well-intentioned restrictions that come into play, I always see another person stomping their feet saying, how dare you tell me what to do? And it's why I always shoot down these ideas of, oh, look how things go in Norway. Look how things go in Australia. We're not Norway or Australia. We're the United States of America. And in the United States of America, when you tell someone they can't do something, they flip the fuck out.
Yep.
Someone in Norway hears from the local magistrate or whatever their hierarchy. I don't know much about Norse. Norse, is that the word?
I think so.
Yeah, I don't know much about their system, so yeah, if you tell a Norseman, I feel like we're talking about Vikings now. Anyway,
so I was going to say, I think it may be a Viking term, but it's close enough. Norway peoples.
Yeah. Anyway, if you tell them you can't have this, they just kind of go, all right. And that even happens with the left here in America. Once you tell them they can't do something, they flip out the same as a conservative would.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just funny when either one of those sides then wants to restrict people. Which, I mean, it's certainly an equal thing. It's just right now the left is being much more vocal and much more upfront about it. That's not meant to sound like a compliment that they're being upfront about wanting to steal people's money. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird thing, and obviously, you know, I mean, I've said this many times before, legalization is far superior to prohibition. But the fact that the government made this illegal, made marijuana illegal, and now we're in the position of basically having to, like, 1 inch at a time, get back rights that shouldn't have been taken in the first place. I've said a million times, many other people have, if you're not infringing on the rights of anyone, you're not committing a crime, you're doing nothing wrong. And we're now in the position of, you know, well, give us a little bit of our freedom back, please, you know, maybe tax it at 20, 30, 50%, have many regular restrictions, when the stores can be open, how much people can buy, all this other stuff. And we're all going to basically in the end settle for that when it should be much more, but we have to compare it to prohibition, which sucked. And we have to basically settle for the fact that the government gave us back a little bit of freedom when it comes to marijuana. And that's going to be good enough, but it's not good enough for me. And I know that it's never going to be good enough for me. And it's really, it's definitely a frustrating part about legalization with all the good that's coming about.
Well, I couldn't agree more. And actually, that's one thing I like about the way Vermont has legalized it is, I don't fully like it because we didn't legalize sale. We only legalized possession and growing and consumption. Although there is a nifty idea how to get around that, the sale thing, and we'll get into that in just a second. But basically, this is the closest thing to a free market approach to legalization that we've seen in this country so far. And the fact that it was passed by our legislature, which I also have kind of iffy thoughts on. I mean, I guess it's better than a voter referendum, but only in the classical liberal versus ANCAP sense of looking at it. Because the way I describe myself is I'm a theoretical Rothbardian and a pragmatic classical liberal. The first one refers to my overall beliefs. The second one refers to how I vote. I currently recognize that right now I have to operate in a system where I have to vote, which could be seen as force. So,
yeah.
And we do have to vote. It's stupid not to. Once we've reduced the government down to like 25% of what it once was, then we can argue about, classical liberalism and anarcho-capitalism and minarchism and all that stuff. Right now, we should just be all allies, whether you're with the LP or the Republican Liberty Party. But anyway, so back to legalization. I'm really excited to see what Vermont's going to do, and just see how it goes here. And as far as being able to sell it and not get put in jail, because that's obviously the goal.
Yeah.
Someone who's been to jail before, it's not fun. The way we could do it, and the idea that's been proposed, is to do a gifting system. Like, I'm gifting you this slice of weed. Oh, you're gifting me $50? How wonderful. But as someone, just to end this, as someone who's grown up in an agricultural state, I already have enough qualms with the agriculture subsidy, which I actually just wrote a really great piece on Austin Peterson and Claire McCaskill and her approach to agriculture in Missouri versus his. And he actually shared it on social media, which was good, because I've also been critical of Austin before, and so I don't always get the love from him that I would prefer.
Yeah, I actually wrote for the Libertarian Republic for a little while, probably almost a year. I wrote articles for them.
Huh? I sent them a resume and never heard back. So
they've gone through some editorial changes, especially over the last couple of years. It was back when Keith...
I'm not mad. I'm not talking shit.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago when obviously they just do it for like the clicks or whatever, but it was good exposure, and Austin's an interesting guy. He's and what he's doing in Missouri is pretty interesting. He's definitely adept at getting his name in the news and getting to say what he wants to say in front of people. With the machine gun giveaway got him a lot, or the machine gun should be legal thing. The AR-15 giveaway.
He's a marketing guru, genius. I've got nothing but respect for the guy. My only real criticisms have been when he cozies up too close to Trump, because I don't want him to get the wrong idea that his base of power will ever come from the MAGA base, the MAGA movement. His base of power, where he has always drawn the most influence from, has been the people that, one, want to see a change in the Libertarian Party, and that's me too. And a change that's not necessarily anarchist and not necessarily pragmatist, but something that effectively implements real libertarian policies into working government in the here and now.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Austin is very concerned with. And I saw a brief period where he was really, really kissing up to Trump and the MAGA movement, and I called him on it. And I can safely say it was one of my least successful articles.
Well, Bryce, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Before we let you go, where can people find your writing? Where can they find you online, social media, all that stuff?
Well, the thing on the screen right here, that's my Twitter. And if you type it into Facebook, it would take you to my personal account. I'm no longer taking friend requests from strangers on my personal account because it's gotten weird. Not always in the bad way. I've actually I've learned that there's some really interesting, I guess for lack of a better term, libertarian groupies. And I certainly do. I do love a pretty woman, but yeah, there's just been some others that have been weird, so I've deleted them. And others I've kept, and they've been great. But so if you want to find me on Facebook, you'd find me at Bryce Jackson Blog. That's my public page, and you'll find. I did have my own personal blog that had my non-political writing, but I took it down because when I first decided to become a writer, I hadn't done it in years. I'd basically spent the last 10 years being a blue-collar worker, coming home and getting drunk every day. And I only did it because I just knew I wanted to do something different with my life. And I was watching Californication drunk, wasted. And I was like, good God, this guy's got a good job. All he does is write words, get drunk. I wonder if I could do that. Turns out I can. So
there you go.
Now I'm working on doing that. I'm trying to now get published with like the big named ones. I sent something into Reason recently. I don't expect my first submission to get published. I know I'll probably work at that for a while. I want to get published in High Times. I want to get published in Rolling Stone. Yeah, so just type in Bryce Jackson Libertarian or Bryce Jackson Writer into Google, and you should see a pretty decent cross-section of my stuff. I've had some stuff on the Daily Liberator. I had one article through some college blog called the Free Mind Media. God, I just don't want to forget anyone. I was recently on Sarcasm and Liberty's live stream podcast. So yeah, I'm trying to be as everywhere as I can just to spread a message of pragmatic, responsible libertarianism that acknowledges that we sometimes have to compromise, but that compromise can never be a step backwards. And I stole that from TJ Eckert, just so we're clear. I don't want TJ to see this and then think that I'm passing it off as originality. He said that to me, and it was brilliant. So I'm giving him full credit.
Awesome. Bryce Jackson, thanks for being on the show, man.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Bryce Jackson CVT on Twitter. Go check it out.